G'day folks, Rod Moore here from Selling Art Online. Once again, this is vlog number 5, and in this vlog I want to talk to you about what your art is worth. This is a big question, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube and there's a lot been written about and talked about how to price your art, but very few people actually sit down and consider what is your art actually worth. When you start to look at building a business around your art, you have to understand that your art is a product, and a product has a real world market value, commercial value. And like any other product, that value is determined by the marketplace. Now, a lot of artists want to put a value on their art, and I've seen, sometimes I go onto eBay and look at all the paintings there, and I'll see somebody has created a piece of art, decided that it's a masterpiece, and they've come in and they've put $5,000 on it on eBay. Now, I don't know whether they're doing it as a joke or whatever, or maybe they've got a track record of selling art along those lines. But when I try and follow up and see who that artist is, there's nothing about them online, and so they've just pulled a figure out of the air. Now, that's what the art is worth to them. The chances of finding somebody in the marketplace that sees that value in it may not be as high. Because when people are paying that sort of money, they're buying it as an investment. So they want to really know that you're an artist worth investing in, generally speaking. Not in every case. I mean, there's obviously wealthy people who buy art at that sort of price point for enjoyment and pleasure. But a lot of people are buying it, will spend that sort of money because they see it as an investment, because they recognize that the artist is somebody to follow and who's going places. So, if you're just pulling numbers out of the air, then that's probably not a good strategy. Now, I've seen a lot of information. I've heard a lot of people talk about how to price your art, and there's all sorts of ways of doing this, right? So you look at what your other artists in your area are charging for similar sort of art who are at your sort of level, but that's all subjective, right? Because it doesn't really determine what the market values your art at. And if you can get an audience of people, a marketplace, to follow you because they love you and they love what you're all about and they're just so excited to be watching you develop as an artist and they love your work, then your value of your paintings is going to be higher than the value that somebody who hasn't got all that marketing and that brand building and that audience developing, right? Even if they're as good an artist or better. So there's a lot of intangibles that help determine what a piece of art is worth. And I mean, this is obvious, right? I mean, a Monet sells, when it goes to auction at Sotheby's or something like that, it's going to sell in the tens of millions of dollars. But, a Rod Moore is probably not going to reach anywhere near that, right? Because Monet obviously changed the course of history, right? And in my own little way, I'm doing that within my segment of the market, but not on a global basis yet, right? But you never know. So comparable art has different values, and it all comes down to what the market sees the value of your art being. So you can use whatever pricing formula you want, right? And I've seen formulas where you work out the total square inches and have a dollar value per square inch, and that gives you the value, plus the cost of your materials and a profit margin and the cost of the frame. You add all that up and that gives you a number, right? Well, that number has no real relevance in the marketplace unless the market's prepared to pay that. Now, the vast majority of artists that I've met over the time and become friends with or observed their behaviour, they develop art, they come up with a price, they put it out in the marketplace or in an art show or on their website, and it rarely sells, right? It rarely moves, and so they stockpile all their art. The reason is the prices that we're coming up with have no real bearing on what the market sees the value of our piece with. Now, many years ago, I was in real estate, and one of the biggest challenges of being a real estate agent, it was a long, long time ago, probably 20 years ago, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. It was part of my journey of weaving my way through all these different careers and failing at most of them until I found what I was meant to do, which is art and teaching other artists to learn how to paint and so on. Anyway, I digress. Real estate. And so people would have this inflated view of what their house was worth, but the marketplace, the buyers, wouldn't view it in the same way. Right, so the price that the buyers thought versus the price that the sellers thought, there was always this disconnect in the marketplace. And so the only time houses sold was where those two became in alignment, where the buyer and the seller could agree on a price to exchange the house for. That's the only time houses sell. So a lot of the time people would have their house on the market at what they thought their property was worth, but the market wasn't meeting that perceived value that the seller had. So that's why the seller didn't sell their house. Buyers are pretty astute. You know, they do look at the market. They do analyse every other opportunity that's out there in the marketplace for them to spend their money on as far as houses go. And so if you want to sell a house, you've got to meet the market. You've got to get to a point where buyers and sellers agree on the value before an exchange can happen. Same thing with your art, right? It's no different. If you put the wrong price on your art and you're wondering why your art's not selling, it's because the market doesn't see that that's the value. You've got to keep in mind, art's not an essential purchase, right? But people don't need to buy art, but it does fulfill an emotional and a cultural and a lifestyle aspect to our lives, which is a lot of it's intangible. But when you've got to pay the rent or the mortgage and car payments and put the kids through school and put food on the table, and there's so many demands on people's money, the discretionary money that they have left at the end of the month or the end of the year, they've got to decide what they're going to spend that money on. And so they can spend it on anything, like going on a holiday, buying a new piece of furniture, giving it to charity. There's so many options that people have in terms of what they can do with their money. So what's going to make them part with their money to get a piece of your art? You've got to really consider this. So the value of your art is what the marketplace perceives it to be, right? You can put whatever price you want on it, but if you want to sell it, you've got to get it in line with how the marketplace is perceiving it. Now, my advice to you when you're starting out, and in many respects, I'm still in this early stage as well, my advice to you is to make it as attractive as possible price-wise to get sales happening. Because when you get a momentum of sales, you can bring your prices up over time, okay? And the market will follow you as you build up buyers, because in my experience, a lot of buyers will buy more than one piece. And they might buy low dollar value pieces initially, and you can migrate them up into higher dollar values or commissions over time, right? But if you start up too high with your prices, because the formula you heard somebody speak about on YouTube, or you read it in a book on how to sell your art, if you've come up with a formula and therefore a price on your art, it may not connect with the market, which might be why you're not selling it. Now, I'm not necessarily saying to give your art away for free, but I do recommend that when you're starting out, you find a way of allowing the marketplace to help you determine what the art is worth. Sites like eBay and Etsy, for instance, allow you that opportunity, but also, building up a following on Facebook. I've seen a number of artists conducting their own little auctions on Facebook, like in the comments, leave a bid for this piece of art, and they'll run it for a few days, and whoever bids the highest, they sell it for. Right? Well, that's an example of the market determining what they think your art's worth. Now, as you get better and as your audience grows and your momentum grows, naturally that value will rise, because when you've got more than one or two people wanting to buy that piece of art, then they're going to spend more on it. And over time, you establish higher and higher prices and you work that price up. There's a young chap in the States who I've befriended, and he's a brilliant artist. He's a young Mexican guy, brilliant artist, and he sells his art on eBay, right? Now, he's a prolific artist. He produces a lot of art, and he puts everything on eBay, and he puts it for $1, a starting bid, right? Now, I know a lot of artists right at this stage are shuddering. They hate eBay, yada, yada, but just hear me out, because this is a really important distinction. This is the distinction between just focusing on art and thinking, that your art's got this magical value because of this pricing formula, versus focusing on art and a business and becoming an art entrepreneur, and then understanding the real world commercial reality of pricing any product, right? So this young guy, he lists these paintings on eBay for $1, and he allows the marketplace to determine what they're worth. Well, he's sold thousands and thousands and thousands of paintings on eBay. And guess what's happened? Over time, maybe not initially, right, but over time, he's accumulated all these buyers who now fight for his paintings. Not every painting, but enough of them hit the $100, $200, $300 mark that he's making hundreds of dollars a day in my calculations, right? I've looked at his auctions on a regular basis, and on any one day he could have 10 auctions finishing, and he's making $500 a day on some days that I've looked. Right? If you're doing that day in, day out, that's a six-figure income, producing art, right? Now, what most artists can't get their head through, because they've got this irrational view of what their art's worth, they can't get their head around listing a piece of art for $1, and maybe they only get one bid and it sells for $1, and they think, oh, this doesn't work. But if you build momentum over time and you build an audience, because that's what this young Mexican guy is doing. He's building an audience of buyers, collectors, people who love him and his art, and his value's going up and up and up and up all the time, right? And he's going to be a hugely successful artist because he's got the right entrepreneurial focus in what he's doing. He's an artpreneur, right? Which is what I'm wanting to really encourage you to become. Brilliant at what he does. But he didn't start there. He started like all of us. He started putting a few listings up, $1, and he probably had lots of them that he had to move for $1. But you know what happens, right? Those people get that piece of art and they go, wow, this is really nice. And then they follow him and they want to buy more. And the next time they see a piece that they like, well, now there's 2 or 3 people who are now wanting to buy that piece. So next time it goes for $20. And then 6 months later, they might spend $50 because they fall in love with the artist and the art piece. And they want to get it, right? They just want to, and when people really connect with you and the pieces of art, they will spend more money over time, okay? So that's an example of the marketplace helping you determine what is your art actually worth, rather than you just plucking a figure out of the air or using some formula to come up with a value on your art, which has absolutely no connection whatsoever with the marketplace itself. What do the buyers think your art's worth, right? They're not using a formula. They're not. They don't know the square inch, price per square inch, plus your costs, plus the freight. They don't know any of that, right? They don't care about that. All they care about, I really love this piece of art, but I've only got $50 left over this week, right? And this guy wants $500 for this piece. One day maybe. You miss the opportunity to build a relationship with that person. Think about this. Imagine if you'd sold that piece for $40 on eBay to that buyer who only had $50 that week, and they get that piece of art and they just absolutely love you. They love your story and what you're all about as an artist, and they become mesmerized and intrigued by your world, and all of a sudden they've bought this piece of art and they love it, right? Now they've got it at home and it's on their wall, and they have friends and family come over and look at my new piece of art, and they're spreading the message for you, right? The more pieces of art you can get out there initially in the early days of your career, I believe, the better off. Now, I know there are other artists who believe, no, you should restrict the number of pieces you have out there and you should only send out your absolute... I don't buy into that. I buy into the theory that the more people we can get out there promoting us and our art, the better, right? It's about works on walls. As somebody said to me many years ago, let's get as many pieces of work on walls out there in the marketplace that we can. So starting out, how do you price your art? I think you allow the marketplace to help you determine the value of your art. When you do that, you'll naturally rise to a level where you fit in the marketplace. Forget about all the complex formulas and ways of calculating your art, and forget about what you think the art's worth. Unless you want to, if you're happy to hang on to all your art, then put whatever price you want on it. But if you want to build a career where people exchange their hard-earned money for your art, right? Be able to do that consistently and regularly, day in, day out, week in, week out, and have money flow into your bank account so you don't have to have a job, or at least part-time income so you can pay for your art supplies, then you've got to allow the market to help you determine where does it sit naturally? What is the real value of your art? Over time, you can increase it. Hope this has helped. Let me know what your thoughts are. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of artists that are going to freak out by what I've just said. They're going to have counter opinions to this, which I welcome your opinions, because this is just my opinion and from observation of artists that are doing well. And I know there's going to be plenty of artists out there who's put up a piece on eBay and they put a high price on it and it's sold, right? But I'm not talking about one-off sales or a couple of sales a year. I'm talking about selling art day in, day out, week in, week out, and doing that over a long period of time so you can actually earn an income from it, not one-off sales. So don't Don't get in touch with me and say, Rod, you're wrong because I sold a piece, blah, blah. I know you did, right? I've done it. We've all had that experience, right? I'm talking about consistent, regular sales. I'm building an audience of collectors and buyers. Let's allow the marketplace to help you determine where does your true price point sit, and from there work on a plan to grow that in time, right? That'll help you immensely. So let me know what your thoughts are, comments, like this video, and subscribe if you think these videos have been of value, and I'll see you next time in our next Selling Art Online vlog. Cheers for now.